Now we're going to talk about the third form of linear equations, but this form is only ever used simply to write linear equations. We don't ever use them to graph with. So we're going to talk about this point-slope form, and then we're going to look at two instances where we would use point-slope form. We would use it to write an equation when we've got 1 point and the slope, and when we've got 2 points. So to understand slope-intercept form, you need to understand what exactly gets filled in when you do this equation. So we're going to do a little bit of color coding. I'm going to use pink for the y1 value. I'm going to use green for the m value. And I'll use blue for the x1 value. Okay, so these are the numbers that get filled in. Where do those numbers come from? Well, the x1 that you're going to fill into the formula, that is going to come from the x-coordinate of any point on the line. And likewise, that's what y1 stands for. It is the y-coordinate. I'm going to change this just a little bit. It is any point on the line, but I'm going to say a point because a lot of students will actually mix up they'll mix around the points. You have to pick a point that's given, and you have to use both of the x1, y1 for that point. And then m is the same thing it is for slope-intercept form. M is the slope. So that part stays the same. Okay? So once you understand what the equation is going to look like, that'll help in order for you to actually learn how to do some examples. So all of the examples are going to involve writing equations. This one says write the equation of the line that passes through the point -6, 4 and has a slope of -1/2. So this is my m, and this is my x1 and my y1. So this one's pretty easy. So our first step is to just plug in the given slope for m, and then plug in the x and y values for x1, y1. So I'm going to put in for the y1, I'm going to put in 4. For the m, I'm going to put in -1/2. The x1, I'm going to put in -6. Be real careful, the equation already has a -6 in it. So what's going to happen right here is that's going to change to a positive. So you got to be very, very careful on those double negatives. And then all I have to do now is solve the equation for y and write it in slope-intercept form. Okay, so I'm going to distribute this 1/2. So y minus 4 equals -1/2 x plus 1/2 of 6, but that's a negative because of the negative outside. It's going to be a -3. And then add 4 to both sides. And I get y equals -1/2 x plus 1, because +4 and -3 make a +1. Now the second example is very similar to that, except that we have a little more work to do because it says write the equation of the line that passes through points 4, -2 and 3, 1. Well, they didn't give us the slope. Okay, so if we want the slope, we are going to have to first use slope formula to find the slope. So that's our first step. Use slope formula to find the slope and plug this in for m. Okay, and then, so I'm going to write this in here just in case you forget. This is slope formula. So it does not matter which one is x1, y1, but once you pick it, you have to keep it that way. So I'm going to make this one be x1, y1. and this one be x2, y2. So what we're going to do then is we're going to plug this in. So y2 minus y1, negative 2 minus 1, over x2 minus x1, 4 minus 3. That's going to give me negative 3. Negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3, and 4 minus 3 is 1, so the slope is negative 3. That's the m. Now I just have to go back now and do a little bit more work. I have to plug in the values of, and this is important on these, either point that's in the equation, or that's in the problem. So I could use 4 and negative 2, or I can use 3 and 1. It doesn't matter that this one was already previously x2, y2. You can use any point at the end. But the 3, 1 is going to be easier because there's no negatives. Okay, so I'm going to write those in. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So I'm just going to replace the y1 with a 1. The m I already found, negative 3, x minus, and then x1 is 3. So from here, I just have to do my distributing and simplify. So I get y minus 1 equals negative 3x plus 9. And then I'm going to come up here. Then I'm going to add 1 to both sides so I can get my final equation of y equals negative 3x plus 10. So the last step was to write in slope-intercept form. Okay? So point-slope form is only used for writing equations. It's never ever used for graphing. Okay? We will use it again when we start talking about parallel and perpendicular lines in this lesson.